Warning: 50 States, 50 Murders is a podcast based around true crime. Please be advised of the horrific details of murder, abuse, and sexual assault, occasional adult language, as well as brief humor. Buckle up and enjoy the ride.
Hello, and welcome back to 50 States, 50 Murders. I am your host, AJ.
And I am your co-host, Sarah.
This is the podcast taking you, the listener, on an auditory road trip across all 50 states while we discuss 50 different murders. Thank you all for tuning in to Season 2, Episode 27.
This week, we are heading to New Jersey to discuss a new case that was responsible for new laws in place today.
Once again, welcome back to 50 States, 50 Murders. Big thank you to everyone tuning in to this week's show. This week's recommendation comes from a friend of mine named Liz, and Liz asked us to cover the state of New Jersey. So as always, thank you for the follow and the recommendation. Keep those state recommendations coming along. I think we have the next two states laid out per recommendation, so thank you, Liz, for that one.
This week, we'll be traveling to New Jersey to learn a little bit about the Garden State. Some places to do, some things to see.
Nice, you did what I did.
I just did what you did. Hold on.
It's easy to do.
Some places, okay. And I literally was reading it, okay. This week, we'll be traveling to New Jersey to learn a little bit about the Garden State. Some places to see, some things to do when venturing out that way. Some infamous murders from New Jersey, as well as our own murder case of the week.
All right, so first and foremost, welcome back, my co-host Sarah. How are we feeling? Are we feeling better?
Feeling much better. I really appreciate you taking that on last week. I know it was last minute, so I appreciate you coming in clutch.
It was a little bit of an adventure doing a solo guy, but wasn't too bad. Just man, I was out of breath a lot. There. It was a little bit of a workout. It seems like just sitting here talking on the mic is easy work, but man, it was talking for an hour solo is a bit of a workout. So I got my workout on. It was. I'm glad you're back for sure.
You did great though. You did really good. I think it was really easy to listen to. So not having that back and forth, I was a little bit worried for you just because I know I would be worried for myself. So I appreciate it. I think you did a great job.
Yeah, so last week we had the state of Hawaii. We had a pretty interesting case there. And I had two questions that I asked last week. And I got some pretty good feedback from people just listening to the episode and texting me back, letting me know what they personally thought. Kind of seemed like we were all on the same page, but figure I'll throw these out there to you real quick. We can just do like a very shallow dive.
Sure.
But the first one I had here, I thought, is there a limit for how hard you can push for justice? Is it possible to push too hard for justice?
I know. I was thinking of that so much when I was listening to the episode back. I feel like it's so hard to say.
Yeah.
Unless, without having lived through something like that, I think it's really hard to say what steps you're going to take. And so it's hard for me because I know, before becoming a parent, I had the best parenting advice and I knew what I was going to do and what I wasn't going to do. And,
sure,
all my top things and, all that until it actually happens. And then you're like, okay, well,
things change a little bit.
Sure, you can watch your iPad while we're at dinner and so you're not screaming. There's
Yeah.
a lot. There's a lot.
Sure.
So I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to that. I think it'd be really hard, especially at first. You're going to want to try to get justice as any way you can and fight for it the best you can. At some point, you'll have to trust that everything you've done is enough, which I think would be really hard to do. But at some point, to be able to move on and continue living for yourself and for your family, you have to accept that what you've done is enough.
I think that's fair. And then lastly, I had, are there certain wrongs that are simply impossible to make right, no matter the compensation? So, like, for example, last week's episode, spoiler alert, if you haven't listened to last week's episode, skip the next 30 seconds. But a couple people were wrongfully imprisoned for something that they did not do.
Mm-hmm.
And they're currently working on getting them $50,000 a year for every year locked up. And
which is nothing.
I think there's a lot that I would do for my loved ones. Pretty much anything that didn't involve, like, killing somebody. I'd probably do whatever. But going to prison, that's just, I don't think that's something I could do.
For $50,000.
And especially
weird.
for $50,000.
Yeah, that's almost insulting, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I said last week, even like $5 million a year for every year locked up. I mean, that would be really hard. It might sound intriguing for the moment, but it's like, whew, that's tough.
Yeah, I would probably, for $5 million, I might do it for a year.
Yeah.
But
a year.
More than that, no.
Yeah, locked up for 25 years. And
yeah, that's insane.
That is a wrong that I'm not so sure you can make right. But yeah, overall, good episode. I appreciate everyone tuning in. We had some pretty solid results. Last few episodes we've been getting some great hits. So we appreciate everyone listening. As always, if you enjoy the show, be sure to like, follow, subscribe, share with a friend. It's my birthday weekend. So if you want to do something cool for me, tell a friend about the show. If you listen and you enjoy it, spread the good word.
Yep. A happy birthday to my co-host, AJ.
Thank you.
We are celebrating with our Dunkin' Coffees.
Yes. Dunkin' Coffees.
And it's also St. Patty's Day, so we both have our green on, and we are ready to rock.
St. Patty's Day, rocking some green. So yeah, if you listen to the show and you enjoy it, just share the good word. That's all I ask for this year for my birthday. It's greatly appreciated. So, now that my co-host is back, we're all feeling great, ready to rock. We're going to go ahead and transition to our State of the Week for episode 27, which is New Jersey. And let's go ahead and dive into this week's episode. We're heading to New Jersey. We're going to learn a little bit about the state, as well as some infamous murderers. And then, as always, we have our own personal case. So, New Jersey. It is the Garden State. And have you ever been to New Jersey?
No, I don't think so, no.
Okay.
Nope.
I mean, I know I haven't.
Actually, I take that back. I was in a spot in New Jersey that's located close to New York.
Okay.
And I remember staying there, but traveling,
Yeah.
Everything we did was really in New York, but
Yeah.
I believe we stayed in New Jersey, but
Okay.
I haven't got the full New Jersey experience, not yet.
I mean, I think that counts. I remember in episodes prior.
We said if we stayed the night.
Yep. I've asked, and it was determined as you have to spend the night, stay overnight for it to actually count. So as long as you stayed over the night, I'd say that counts. I would give that one to you. We have the New Jersey.
Paramus, New Jersey.
Okay. Yeah. One thing that always kind of like throws me off is how sometimes I feel like New Jersey doesn't get enough respect as its own state. It's like there's football teams like New York Giants. I think they're technically in New Jersey, but they just call them the New York Giants. I just feel like New York kind of overpowers New Jersey.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I feel a little bad for New Jersey. Never been there. Not, hopefully someday I want to check off all of them, but I'm not necessarily dying to get out there. But we're going to see what we have for things to do, places to see, and maybe that'll change my mind a little bit. We have the state flag. Gotta be honest, hate this flag.
Really? I thought, for some reason, I was thinking that you were actually going to like this one.
Nope, hate it. I just, it's bold.
It's bold, yeah.
It's orange. You know, I feel like most of these flags are either like blue. Well, I mean, honestly, I feel like they're all just blue. But this one is just creamsicle orange. And
is that a horse or like a seahorse?
Yeah, it looks like
That's what it looks
a
like.
horse, and I don't know, two people just guarding the horse. Yeah, I don't know. We'll throw it up on the TikTok as always. Maybe you as a listener will enjoy this state flag. I'm not a huge fan, can't lie. So, murder per capita, New Jersey. This one surprised me. I've always heard that New Jersey is like a really rough
High
spot.
crime? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So either that's false or maybe the website I'm getting this information from isn't the most accurate. I don't know. It's got to be one of the two because New Jersey comes in at 41 out of all 50 states for murder per capita. 3.1 murders per 100,000 people.
Wasn't Nebraska 42?
Yeah. So we're on the we're covering some states with some lower scale murders. I really expected New Jersey to be like top 5, honestly,
Wow.
from what I've always heard. But yeah, not the case. 41. Some top places to see in the state of New Jersey. I know you were able to find a couple things for us there, so if you want to go ahead and share what you can expect to do when you're in the state of New Jersey.
Sure. So, in true Sarah fashion, Atlantic City, known for its casinos and nightlife with Atlantic Ocean beaches and coastline. This was definitely something I've always kind of wanted to view.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Vegas
visit.
of the East Coast, basically.
Exactly, yeah. And it's closer. However, I've always kind of heard the same thing, that it's a little more rough and, you know, you got to be more careful when you go to Atlantic City.
Yeah, Atlantic City is, you got to be careful when you go out that way. That's, again,
Yeah.
that's what I've always heard. Maybe we're
see.
getting wrong
Maybe,
information. Maybe New Jersey's great.
Maybe. We'll see. The Atlantic City Boardwalk is a 4-mile wooden walkway. It's a historical landmark and a popular destination offering a variety of attractions, including casinos, shops, restaurants, and amusement piers like the Steel Pier. The Atlantic City Boardwalk is actually considered the first and longest boardwalk in the United States, and it opened June 26 in 1870.
Okay, love a good boardwalk.
Yeah. So I think that'd be really cool to see.
Yeah, anytime we go to the beach, I know my wife and I, we always try to like look up boardwalks.
Like a pier.
Yeah,
kinda,
pier,
yeah.
boardwalk, and we like to check it out, you know. I'm a big fan of boardwalks. So
Yeah,
that's
it
cool.
kind of reminds me, I mean, now it's kind of a little bit more rough to visit, but like Myrtle Beach.
Yeah.
Like I think I said when we did our I think we said at one point in South Carolina, like I always visited Hilton Head recently, but before that it was always Myrtle Beach with my mom and her best friend and their kids that, you know, became like cousins to us. And one of our favorite things to do was go to the little boardwalk in Myrtle Beach, and same thing with Ocean City. We went to that one too before. So I think this one would be a really cool one to see, especially given that it was the first one.
Yeah, for sure. They started it.
And another place to see and thing to do, I thought was interesting because we used to have a Six Flags here. They also have a Six Flags Great Adventure Amusement Park located in Jackson Township, New Jersey. Back in 2012, so a little over 13 years ago.
Yep.
They combined its 160-acre Great Adventure with its 350-acre Wild Safari Animal Park.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, so it forms Six Flags Great Adventure and Safari Park with 510 total acres. So it's actually the second largest theme park in the world following Disney's Animal Kingdom.
Okay, that's cool.
Which I thought was super interesting.
Yeah, I've actually never heard of this specific park, but if it's the second biggest, you would have thought you would have heard of it. So that's cool.
And I don't know why when me and you were talking, I was like, oh, Six Flags, we have that here. And then I forgot that We have Cedar Point now, and we do not have a Six Flags anymore. So
Yeah, we
that
used
would
to
be something I would
have
want to do.
Jogga Lake,
Oh, Jogga Lake, yep.
which transformed into Six Flags, went back to Jogga Lake. They kind of did something like this. So we had Six Flags, and there was SeaWorld
Oh,
right
yeah,
there.
yep. Mhm.
So they so New Jersey, they have a safari. Us, we had SeaWorld. We did have a water park that connected
Yeah.
for a while.
Was
and
it like something Breeze or I can't remember.
it was the
what it was.
Wildwater Kingdom.
Oh, Wildwater Kingdom. Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, just as a kid, I remember going there every year.
I do too, but I think the whole thought of that is kind of a lot to me to think
Yeah.
about, because when I plan for a water park, especially with kids,
Mm-hmm.
it's like you need so much different things than you would need to go ride roller coasters, and then you have to bring
Yeah.
it all for 1 day or 2 days. That's
Yeah, it's a lot. I feel like you kind of have to pick one or the other
Yeah.
and kind of just go with it.
Mhm.
Maybe you check out the other one for a second, but for the most part,
yeah.
it's one or the other. And this one, I would imagine, is probably close to the same thing. So a safari, I would imagine that's pretty close to a zoo, I
Mhm.
guess. I wonder if that's one of those deals where you get to drive through
through.
it. That'd be
Do you
cool.
watch those videos on TikTok?
Like the animals are
Oh,
like
it's
Yeah.
hilarious.
sticking their heads in the car.
Mhm.
And,
I've
yeah.
always wanted to do it, but I lease my vehicle, so I'm like, I don't want to turn it in with little
Yeah.
bird marks. And
I've never done a safari before.
well, we should add that to the bucket list.
Yeah,
for the
so I mean,
summertime.
I guess this alone, that would be cool to see. Second biggest park. I'm not a huge roller coaster fan, but I'll
Okay.
check. I'll jump on a few and then just do the safari. That would be cool.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, I'll do it if I'm there, but in the summertime when the lines are seriously, you're waiting like an hour or 2 out,
Mhm.
like that is just too much for me. Like
Yeah.
it's like so much waiting for like 30 seconds. So
Yeah.
it's I'm kind of in the same boat as you. But I feel like it'd be something, in New Jersey, it's probably something where families take like a weekend and, 1 day, say Saturday, they do the amusement park and then Sunday they do the water park or
Yeah.
something like that.
Let's break it up a little bit.
Yeah, that would make more sense to me, but
Yeah.
I guess we'll see. But
I guess for me, like when I think of New Jersey, I always go back to The Sopranos. We watched that a couple years ago and loved it. I don't know. You ever get a chance to watch The Sopranos?
no.
Okay, so it was like late '90s, early 2000s mobster show, and New Jersey, New York. That was kind of like big for the mafia-esque. So I think if I ever go to New Jersey, like I want to try to find like a decent little area that's got like some Italian feels, maybe like some little Italian
Yeah.
town and some Italian food, and see if it kind of clicks. Maybe try to find a store or a building from the show. I think that would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
But
Definitely.
love that show, and that's kind of what my mind went to when I was looking into New Jersey.
I'm not gonna lie, not that I'm proud to admit this, but when you first said New Jersey, my first thought went to Jersey Shore.
Okay,
One of the
that's fine.
shows.
No one's judging.
And once again, not a compliment, but I remember, back when Snooki, one of my best friends calls me Snooki whenever I have a couple drinks, and so that was just always funny to me, how they would always, they worked on the Jersey Shore.
Yeah.
So it just cracks me up watching them walk down the boardwalk and all stuff like that. But
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I watched Jersey Shore, and it'd be kind of cool to go see like the Shoreside T-shirt shop, and I know they
Mhm.
still have the house,
hmm
but like I think most of the clubs that they would go to, I think they have all kind of closed
probably,
down.
yeah.
Yeah. All right, so that is a little bit about New Jersey, some things to do, some places to see. As always, let's dive into some infamous murderers from the state we're covering, which is New Jersey. I know you have a couple infamous murderers, so go ahead and jump into that for us.
Yep. First up, we have the Eastbound Strangler from 2006. The Eastbound Strangler is an unidentified serial killer believed to be responsible for the murders of 4 women near Atlantic City, New Jersey. In 2006, 4 dead bodies of women identified as sex workers were found in a drainage ditch filled with shallow water on November 20th, 2006, behind the Golden Key Motel on the on the Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township, situated on the outskirts of Atlantic City, New Jersey. All of them were placed face down in a row, facing east about 60 feet apart from each other. They were all clothed with the exception of having their socks and shoes removed. They were all believed to have been strangled to death. There is still a $25,000 reward offered for information.
Okay. So we have an unidentified murderer to kick us off. And that's just, I don't know, for some reason, that just always fascinates me that there's someone who did certain things like this and we just have no idea. Like they could still be out there. Maybe they're not, maybe they're dead. Or sometimes you hear about people who did these crimes, but then they actually got locked up for something else.
Yeah.
But, I mean, this guy could still be out there. It's kind of crazy.
That's what's crazy to me, too. I mean, with all the new technology we have and, everything, I just can't believe that there's still unidentified killers. And like you said, it could be anybody. It could be your neighbor. It could be a family member. It could be a friend. Yeah,
you're out at Atlantic City, and the next thing you know, the eastbound stranglers meeting you up with you. Yikes. So, that's something to keep an eye out for if you're ever headed to Atlantic City. Be aware.
And kind of leading into that with not knowing, not knowing who somebody really is, it leads into our second infamous murder, the John List murders of 1971. John List was a mass murderer and a longtime fugitive. He killed his wife, his mom, and 3 kids at their home in Westville, New Jersey, before disappearing and assuming a whole new identity. He was apprehended in Virginia 18 years later and convicted on 5 accounts of first-degree murder, receiving 5 consecutive life sentences.
Okay, again, pretty crazy. You hear about people killing their spouses or whatever. You get into some pretty heated arguments. Who knows? But to kill your kids or your mom, that's crazy.
Yep, and I believe I would have to double check. But I'm pretty sure that he was he was fully remarried and everything. Like he was living a whole new life.
Yeah.
When he was actually caught and everything got caught back up to him. So
yikes, that would be till death do us part though.
Could you imagine somebody just knocking on your door though, like your husband murdered his whole family 18 years ago? I mean,
yeah, that might.
Yikes.
That might be cause for divorce. Maybe.
Yeah, I think that'd be granted. And third up, we have Richard Cottingham, the Brooklyn killer. Between 1967 and 1980, the so-called torso killer attacked at least 6 women in New Jersey. The man enjoyed psychologically torturing his victims by getting to know them. He would ask them a very specific question in order to trap them. If the answer to the question changed throughout the day, he would immediately punish them. He was put in prison in the 1980s with a sentence of more than 200 years for the rape, kidnapping, and murder of 6 women. Richard Cottingham claimed to have killed between 85 and 100 women in New Jersey and New York without giving any new names. That is, until recently. In 2021, the man confessed to the murder of 2 new victims, Mary Ann Pryor, 17, and Lorraine Merrick Kelly, 16, in 1974. This confession earned him 2 additional life sentences in July of 21.
All right, so 3 pretty crazy killers in New Jersey, between 85 and 100 women. That is pretty wild. I feel like you'll hear stories of like famous people and they're like, how many people did you sleep with? And they're like, I kind of lost count. But like, how do you lose count of how many people you killed? That's crazy. I would imagine you would know the exact number.
Well,
so there's just people out here killing so many people that they're just like, yeah, I stopped counting a while back. That's crazy. So, New Jersey, 41 out of 50 on murders per capita. So I'm kind of thinking like maybe it's not as bad as I thought it was. But then after listening to the infamous murders, it's like, yeah, maybe it is. That sounds pretty wild. So, as always, that's going to conclude our coverage of New Jersey itself. Some things to do, places to see, a little pop culture that we threw in there. Go check out some Jersey Shore spots, maybe some Soprano spots, some infamous murders. And then, as always, we like to do our own case that took place in the state we're covering. And I just want to throw a little extra advisory warning.
You want to take a break?
God, T, you gotta go potty. Probably has to go potty.
We can take a break because we'll start right at the case.
Yep. All right, before we jump in, I know we have an advisory warning at the beginning. I just want to throw really quick, just one more advisory. We try to avoid murder cases involving children at times, but this one is going to be one of those significant cases where it does involve a child. And it was a pretty significant law that came out of this case, and that's really why I wanted to cover this, because it's significant even up until today's world. This week, we will be discussing a tragic murder case that happened to take place in Hamilton Township, New Jersey. This murder not only affected the state of New Jersey, but it launched a nationwide law put into place that we know today as Megan's Law. It's a law that is in effect throughout all 50 states, put in place to help better protect our children and to boost awareness within your neighborhoods. As we continue, we'll be discussing the murder case of Megan, the despicable acts of Jesse Timoniquatis, and the laws that came out of the loss of life to help parents moving forward.
Our case this week takes us back to July 29th, 1994. The Kanka family lived in Hamilton Township, New Jersey. It was described as a nice little middle-class neighborhood. While it was not upper-class society, they certainly were not living in a town where you had to be on guard. It was normal for kids to be outside with little to no supervision. So naturally, Megan would run and play outside with friends every single day, playing games, riding bikes, the normal things a kid would do in the summertime with other kids in the neighborhood. On this specific day, Megan headed out at 6:30 p.m. to head to a friend's house who lived on the same street.
To better set the scene for the listener, Megan was a 7-year-old child. And if you're a parent, you're listening to this case, you could be thinking, okay, that is a little bit crazy to allow your 7-year-old to play outside with friends unsupervised. But I guess my question right off top is that really crazy?
I'd like to say no. I remember me and my sister, I have a twin, if I didn't state that before, but we would always constantly ride bikes. We would be able to go down to the end of the street. We would be out in the front yard constantly when my mom was inside, cooking, cleaning, doing whatever she was doing. We did that a lot. Now today, I don't like Emmy being, and I will say, like, I feel like Akron is a little bit more rough than where I live right now. I live in a quiet neighborhood with mostly like retired people living around me. So everybody does kind of pay attention to, but I still, like, she doesn't just go outside. Like, she knows she has to have me or her dad there.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like even in 2 years, we're still going to want to keep an eye on her. There have been times, where I'm sweeping the living room or picking up something in the living room and I can see her out the front, that front window. And she, she has a line that she can go to out of the driveway that she can't really pass, so she's not too close to the road. So it's really subjective, honestly. I mean, but things can happen anywhere, as we've learned. I feel like,
Absolutely.
This and Connecticut both were in cases that were middle class, and so you really never know. Like, no matter how safe you feel, even though it's not considered to be a place that you should be on guard, when you have a child, like, that's your number one responsibility. I mean, even me, like, the house could wait.
Yeah.
The sweeping could wait.
Sure.
Like, you got to pay attention.
All right, so it might actually be a little bit crazy that, your 7-year-old's outside unsupervised by the parents. But I guess to back the Kankas up a little bit, I will want to say that they lived in what we mentioned, a quiet and safe community, so no real fears off the top of their head. And she was surrounded by an older sister, Jessica, who was 12 at the time, and an older brother, Jeremy, who was 9 at the time. So along with her older siblings, as mentioned, all the other neighborhood kids would come out every day and play. So maybe not necessarily parental supervision, but still surrounded by a village.
Yep, and there are strength in numbers, so.
Yeah, so not necessarily too crazy yet, I mean, it's okay. So for Sarah and I, me and my co-host, I like to think that we share a lot of the same values, ideas. We come from the same place. We walk the same hallways in high school. Obviously, we shared family. We have a lot of the same friends. We both came from broken homes whose parents split.
Yep, I like to not really use the word broken. We come from two homes where our parents have separated.
Okay, separated home.
Or split, yeah.
I like broken home a little bit more. It gets me a little bit more sympathy points. You know, people kind of hear that and
I'm like, don't feel bad for me. I had 2 Christmases.
Yeah. You do get some
kidding.
positives out of it. 2 Christmases, 2 birthdays, all that good stuff.
There are far more negatives.
Way more negatives, but nonetheless, we both share that experience. So, long story short, we both have a lot in common. With that being said, I know that we do have some things that make us different. Obviously, the male-female aspect. Mm-hmm. You're always going to have different viewpoints with that. I'm married, you're single, you're raising an actual human child, and I'm taking care of 2 spoiled pups.
Very spoiled.
Yeah. So the reason I mention that for listeners, I like to do these talking points, discussions, and you might be listening and maybe you want to hear some disagreements, some friendly debates. Probably not going to get too much of that with Sarah and I, but we do have some differences, so maybe you will every once in a while hear a disagreement. Maybe we agree to disagree on, and I'm thinking that perhaps maybe this could be one of them. And I guess for me, someone who doesn't have kids, but I hope to someday, that's the plan. I guess I have this pipe dream in my head for what I envision my child's childhood to be. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to lie, a lot of that kind of mirrors off my own. We're both 90s kids. We know how it was. We didn't have cell phones or Apple tags that you could throw on your kid's shoe. And I think the universal rule for everyone was just be home by the time of street lights come on. At least that's how it was for me. And so in my head, as someone who's not a parent yet, I have a feeling of what I want it to be.
Yeah.
And then for you, who someone is a parent and living this real time, maybe you can tell me a little bit, like maybe that's crazy or...
It's definitely not crazy. We've all been there before.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a lot of... I feel like the people with the most opinions about kids are people usually without kids.
Yep, exactly. I'm guilty of that,
yeah,
for sure.
And I will say, so my sister had her daughter like 6 years before me, and I remember just like, why are you doing that? Like, you shouldn't do that. Whenever I have a kid, she's definitely not going to be on her iPad all the time. She's not going to do this and this. And, my sister's like, just wait. I'm like, okay, well, I will, because I know what I want, and I know how I'm going to be. And I think it's definitely good to have those conversations. Like you and Alexis have been together a long time, and I think that'll certainly help that you guys have had these conversations for decades, over a decade, I should say. So that definitely helps, but like we said earlier in this episode, you don't know until you're actually in the situation.
Yeah.
And you have a tiny human who's dependent on everything. And there are certain things, like to me, one of my biggest things I had to learn, because I admittedly am like, I like to be in control. Mm-hmm. And I like to be able to control like the narrative of everything and everything around me, which is definitely a flaw of mine. And the one thing I've really had to learn becoming a parent was to pick my battles.
Sure.
Like I just bought you this super cute, amazing outfit for your Christmas party. And what do you mean you want to wear these like snowflake leggings that don't even match? Or at one point when Emmy was 3, she really liked to wear these unicorn rain boots.
Yep.
No matter what.
I remember those,
with every single outfit. And I'm like, and they're purple with a unicorn and a rainbow on them, so they don't match anything right that you actually are wearing. And I was like, so anyways, it's a pick your battle type situation, like so I feel like there are things, your kids have to respect you, your kids have to but you're also learning with your kid, especially with your first one. I feel like you truly grow up with them as a parent. You can be, and I didn't have kids till I was almost 30, so it's like I just can't believe that some of my friends did this. Actually, even my parents. My parents did this at 17.
Yeah, that's
I couldn't
crazy.
imagine being 17 and having to learn how to navigate raising 2 humans at the same time. So
Yeah,
shout
that's
out
wild.
to mom and dad and my grandma and grandpa and everybody who's helped, because I couldn't imagine that. But
Do you ever feel bad for? I mean, I guess they don't know any different. This is all they've
Yeah.
ever known. But do you ever feel bad sometimes for kids today that like they just didn't have the freedom that we had?
yeah,
I mean,
all the time.
I remember
All the
summer
time.
break, jumping on your bike, and
Oh yeah.
you just go wherever. I mean, it's kind of funny now thinking back on like the things that we used to do as kids. Like
That you're like, there's no way that
I
was
would
safe.
lose my mind if I had a kid that was doing what we were doing. Just, I mean,
Yeah,
we
we
would
talked about
just
that a
go
lot.
for miles.
hmm Yeah, we would have. We had 2 close friends growing up, Marley and Lindy, and they were, I think, like 3 or 4 blocks over, and we definitely rode our bikes over there. We'd meet halfway, and there was no doubt in our parents' mind that we should be able to just go to each other's house.
Yeah.
And like you said, for breaks and stuff, we would get out a calendar. I mean, so young, we would literally get out a calendar like Marley's house, Marley and Lindy's, and then we'll put like Sarah and Stephanie's dad's, Sarah and Stephanie's mom, Marley and Lindy's house. Like we would just back and forth go. I don't know. We were, we would put on these little fundraisers where we would do like, selling lemonade and
Yeah.
selling like cookies and stuff like that. I don't know. A lot of things I feel like we did on our own with not a ton of supervision, but that was just
Right.
how it was.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do
that's
feel
what it,
bad.
That's what it was.
Yeah, I do feel bad that Emmy will. I hate to like say like, always have like a helicopter parent, but just somebody that's always gonna at least like kind of make sure she's okay at all times.
Yeah.
But to me, the risks are like far greater than the benefits of them missing. She is not missing out in lack of anything. I mean,
Yeah,
she does fun
right.
things every single weekend.
True.
She has been on a plane more time than a lot of adults. Like,
Yeah.
she's not like lacking experience.
Yeah, yeah.
She's just lacking, like you said, freedom. That
Yeah.
honestly, I don't know in today's world that like freedom should just be granted, because there are just so many crazy people and so many things that keep coming out that
Yeah.
it's not like you have to watch your children.
Yeah. I mean, there's, I think there's way more awareness today, which is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, we're going to dive into that as well for this one. This case is probably a big reason why, not to use the term helicopter parents, but I mean, I think
Yeah.
things like today's case are why we are the way we are in today's society. But also, you do have the loss of privacy as a kid, and that's a whole debate. Should kids have privacy? Should they not? And
Yeah. It's a huge debate. But also we didn't have, so okay, we had more freedom to go out and do,
anything
run,
and everything.
run the neighborhood. However, like we did not have the access and the different forms of social media
True.
that the kids have today.
True.
And to be honest, that's the most terrifying thing to me is like we're the last generation, like our generation is the last generation that knows what it was like before the use of cell phones.
Yeah, there is a freedom in being able to go out and just mess up,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't have to worry about going viral. Like today, like you get your ass whooped after school, and it's blowing up on Facebook.
Mhm.
Everyone gets to see you get your ass whooped after school, and it's just like,
Just all kinds of things that always end up on the internet. now.
yeah, it's just crazy. You ask a girl out, you get accused of being thirsty. Like it's just
Yeah.
the social media aspect. Like it
And
was
the
awesome.
bullying,
The bullying.
Yeah, it's to a whole new level now
You-
that children,
Everyone got bullied in school at some point, but we went home and it was over.
Yeah.
Now it's
exactly.
like
Nope.
you go to school, you get bullied, then you go home, you get bullied. So yeah, a lot has changed from being a kid in 1994, like Megan was, versus a kid today in 2024, 2025. So lots changed. Opie, please get out of there. Dante,
We should chew on something.
he's in the trash. I'll get it. He loves getting.
Does he throw up?
He'll be all right.
Go on, buddies. I say, would it help if you have the TV on with no like sound?
Nah, it's
No.
not going to matter. He'll be all right. He'll lay down. All right, we have 2 Dante edits. That's a record for you. It's usually Opie. So anyways, long story short, I think it's impossible to ignore the fact that growing up as a kid in 1994 like Megan did versus growing up in today's world, 2025, whole different ball game. Not only for the kids, but for the parents. So maybe like listening to this now, it seems like letting your 7-year-old run around the streets is crazy. But honestly, back in the 90s, that I feel like that was probably...
But at 7, we were doing that.
Yeah, that was normal. I mean, it was nothing to jump on your bike, run around, and just kind of explore. And there was a freedom in that, but yeah, I totally understand the fact that I think in my head I would like to give that same childhood I had to mine, but also I think I can appreciate the fact that honestly it just might not be possible, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
In some aspects it probably could to a lesser degree.
Yeah, I think with, like you said, you have certain ideas in your head. I think the biggest thing is just to be okay with things changing, and whenever you do have a kid, that there are going to be things that you end up bending and like I said, picking your battles.
Yeah.
But you're not wrong for doing that, and you're definitely not wrong for having those conversations. And I would love to say that, you could give them the childhood that we can, but I just don't, and it's not for a lack of you as a parent or, your partner. It's literally a lack of
just awareness, really.
Yeah, I mean, just people are just all the crimes that have came out and all the things that have happened to children. Like I said, the risk is far worse than the benefits. I think, like it's not worth them being able to have certain freedoms. I mean,
I agree.
Then at a risk of possibly, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I get that. I think most people can understand what you're putting down for sure. So jumping back to our case and the day of this crime. So as you mentioned, Megan had left to go play with friends down the road, jumped on her bike, 6:30 p.m., and Megan's mom decided to lay down, take a little nap.
That's wild.
That's
that
okay.
Part,
I mean, hey.
When I read that part, that's...
We listen, and maybe we do judge. Okay. All right, so maybe we judge.
Yeah,
okay.
I don't know about a nap.
Yeah.
I mean, I get, like...
That's
okay,
a little
maybe...
crazy, but I mean, I would have to imagine the dad's there, probably. So, I mean...
Well, okay.
Hey, we listen, and we...
On the couch napping, too, probably.
We judge silently. Okay, so Maureen... Jesus.
Hey.
Bro. So Megan's out playing with some friends. Maureen, her mother, taking a nap, just catching up on some sleep while she's out of the house. And then she wakes up. First thing she notices is that Megan's not home, but her bike was sitting in the front yard. I think it's probably normal to have like some immediate bad feelings in your gut. Your kid's not home. That's pretty weird. But again, this was the 90s, out playing around, and the universal rule of being home by the time the streetlights came back on. Maybe this was just a little bit different. Maybe she was at a friend's house. Who knows? It's hard to say exactly why she wasn't home, but there was a gut feeling that something was wrong. And sadly for the Kankas, Megan would never return home again.
Unfortunately for Megan and her parents, unknown to them, they had a child predator who lived in this small, friendly, peaceful, quiet neighborhood of Hamilton Township, New Jersey. Not only was this person in the same neighborhood, but he lived just 30 yards from where they were. Her parents have said several times now that if only they had known, things would have been different. If they were made aware of this predator living right next door, Megan would probably still be here today.
Their neighbor at the time, his name was Jesse Timendiquas. Okay, real quick. I feel like every murder we get always has.
I was gonna say, can you possibly pick somebody with like a
we always
Smith
get the
or Wilson
toughest.
or
Yeah, there is no.
easy
It's
last names?
no. So from here on out, it's just gonna be Jesse.
Hmm.
So Jesse, first and foremost, not only was he the Kanka's neighbor, but he was a sexual predator and pedophile. Jesse was born April 15th, 1961, making him 33 at the time of this crime. Jesse was, at minimum, let's just say, didn't have a great childhood. He was classified as mentally handicapped. His family came from a background of physical, sexual, and alcohol abuse. And on top of it all, incest. Now, every case is different and unique in its own way, so I'm not necessarily sure it's possible to give a straight up yes or no answer on this one without giving the details, but I'm going to throw it back to you anyways. I have to. So just in general, your very first instinct, without getting details or any of that, when you hear a story about a child predator, and then, I feel like for the most part, you always hear, well, they were molested themselves in the past. When you hear that, do you ever feel like any slight hesitation to judgment, or is that just something that you're over with?
No. I feel a slight hesitation of like sympathy.
Okay.
However, it's very slight.
Very slight. Very
yeah,
slight.
and I know we've had so many conversations. I just feel that well, everybody's situation is different. So I say this with not experiencing a lot of things that other people have, or to or to a level. Everybody is different, but I will say that at some point, like, you are responsible for your actions and the way that you move forward and the way that you handle yourself as an adult.
Yeah.
That, like, yes, your childhood trauma and things that happened to you in the past will certainly affect the person that you're being raised to be, but at some point you have to take responsibility for yourself. You need to get yourself the help that you definitely need and deserve and that you might not have got as a child.
Yeah.
And be better.
Yeah,
I mean,
like, it sucks that happened to you, for sure.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
it's not an excuse to do it yourself.
It's just not an excuse. Like, it almost be like, there, you can compare it to so many other things in life that, like two wrongs do not make a right.
No. Like,
Be
obviously, it's a big problem.
Better, you have to be better.
It's a huge problem, but sometimes I feel like when you hear that, it's almost like they're trying to initiate an excuse of some sort, and it's just, I don't know. So, anyways, for what it's worth, if you are someone who can take some sympathy and all that, he did have his experiences as a child as well.
They say America is the home of second chances. That's something that really makes this country great.
Ooh, make America great.
There are countless There are countless success stories of people who have messed up in some shape or form and bounced back and didn't allow their past to define their future. I do not know anyone who hasn't made a mistake in their life at some point.
Yeah, we all mess up.
All of us.
Everyone makes a mistake.
So I am all for second chances.
Okay.
However, there's always exceptions to every rule.
Absolutely.
So if there was ever anyone who didn't deserve a second chance, to me, it would definitely be a child predator.
Yeah, again, every case is unique and different, and you have to have the details to really establish an opinion. I believe that. But, there's people who have murdered and bounced back. There's people who have done this or that. Maybe they stole. Maybe they broke into a house. I don't know. But you always hear stories about people bouncing back, and that's great. But
yeah, there's definitely different, I just feel like, levels, which I know it's so hard to say. But I mean, like, for instance, being part of maybe a robbery where you thought you were just going for a robbery, like,
maybe you're just a kid.
Of a bank.
Yeah,
And,
hey, crazy. But
and your partner took a gun, or say you were even driving the car. You offered to be a getaway. You didn't know
guilty by association.
Yeah, and they still go to jail for I just think that's so different than having in your mind the mindset to, like, physically harm a child for like your own pleasure.
Yeah, a
It's-
child predator to me is my
It's something
opinion.
that I feel like you can't get out of your brain. Like,
no, there's no second chances.
No.
Personally,
Nope, and that's not like being around the wrong crowd. That's something that's like fundamentally wrong with your brain,
Yeah.
the way it's wired.
absolutely.
And what's really frustrating about looking into this case is even if you wanted to say, okay, let's give him a second chance.
Yeah, hey, he likes kids, but it's the home of second chances. Let's give him one more chance. Okay.
If they were to say that, let's give him another chance. Not only did he get a second chance, he also got a third chance, and he still blew it.
Yikes.
So in 1979, he pled guilty to aggravated sexual assault of a minor who was just 5 years old. He initially received a suspended sentence and therapy.
Which crazy.
That's insane to
Yeah.
me. Like,
A little slap on the wrist.
yeah.
Gets
it's definitely
crazier.
not enough. When he failed to go to therapy, he was issued 9 months in jail.
Okay, so
9 months.
It was like basically all you have to do is go to therapy, and that's it. And he couldn't even do that. He was like, "No, I'm not
Yeah.
going."
Yeah,
so,
because in his brain that's wired wrong. He probably doesn't like to hear his thoughts out loud and doesn't like, I mean,
yeah.
what kind of
If you gave me
excuse could you have?
if you gave me the option of therapy or jail, like, yeah, I'll go to therapy every day, twice a
Yeah.
day.
Mhm.
But this guy couldn't even do it. And then, like you said,
9 months.
9 months. Okay, so sexually assaulting a 5-year-old, 9 months. Okay.
Yep. In 1981, so we're only 2 years later, he pled guilty to an assault of a 7-year-old girl. This time he was given 6 years in the Adult Diagnostic and Treatment Center. He was described by the therapist as a whiner who never participated in treatment, as all he did was sleep. Which explains why he didn't want to go to therapy for the first assault.
Yeah, so again, it's like he's given this opportunity. It's like they're trying to help him. They're trying to give him these
Mhm.
chances. They're trying to help. You got to go to therapy. You're going to this treatment center now. You got to go to treatment. And just absolutely has zero interest in changing or rehabilitating himself.
Mm-hmm. Another therapist claimed to have believed he would eventually commit sexual assault again, but did not believe he would murder anyone.
Okay, great.
Which,
Hey,
yeah, I think is honestly wild.
he probably will sexually assault a little girl again. But hey, we don't think he's gonna murder him.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, to me, like, sexual assault and of minors is honestly murdering their childhood.
Yeah, it's just as bad.
You are like completely killing their innocence, and
Yeah, they're
it's
gonna be
something that should
screwed
not
up
be
for the rest of their
taken so
life.
lightly.
Yeah.
Megan's parents say that if they were aware of his presence, Megan would be here today. But you could also say that if he was given a fitting punishment and not given beyond 2 chances, she could also still be here.
Yeah, I can't help but feel like, the last episode, it was kind of like the justice system did the victim wrong because this guy was insane. He murdered, but they were like, oh, mentally, like, we feel like he's rehabilitated. We're going to let him out. Well, I feel like the same way with this case. If I had a child and obviously you don't know what you don't know, but then I come to find out that this guy's already done this 2 different times prior and all he was given was slaps on the wrist. Like, I would be infuriated with the justice system. Like, this guy should have never been out to have the chance to do this anyways. The therapist at the center even said, like, we think he'll do it again. Just the fact that you feel like he'll do it again, like, this guy shouldn't be let out. That's crazy to me. Like, I'm glad you don't think he'll murder anyone, but it doesn't matter. Like, that's crazy to me. So, yeah, I think we could all agree that maybe there should have been a little bit more parental supervision. But regardless, I have to agree that if he was given a more fitting punishment, then yeah, it's possible she could still be here. So on the day that Megan went missing, Jesse lured Megan into his home, claiming to have puppies inside. Who doesn't love puppies? Once inside, he locked her in his bedroom. He then proceeded to attempt to sexually assault her. But Megan began screaming, naturally, and again, this was a quieter neighborhood. Her parents just 30 yards away, right next door.
Wow.
And the screaming alarmed him, and to quiet her, he put a belt around her neck. Now, from what I'm getting out of this, I don't think he intentionally meant for this to end in murder, but nonetheless, with strangling someone, unfortunately, this resulted in Megan's death. So after she was dead, he proceeded to sexually assault her corpse. And after this was done, he put her body in a chest, loaded it up in his car, and then took the chest to a nearby Mercer County Park, where he took her body out of the chest, and this is where he would dispose of her body. But before disposing the body, he would once again sexually assault her. And I'm pretty big on providing details and facts, and it's auditory show. It's not visual, so I kind of want to paint a picture. But this one, I watched a documentary, and it was so gross. I had to pause it and come back to it. I mean, these details were so gross, so I'm not going to include them. You're more than welcome to look up a documentary if you want, but I feel like whatever you could imagine, you'd probably be right. It was absolutely gruesome, and this guy was a monster.
The very next day, Jesse fessed up to the crime, so there wasn't a big mystery or a case of whodunit. Checking his house after admitting to the crime, there was plenty of evidence. Bloodstains, hair, and body fibers. Jesse had a deep bite mark on his hand that was an exact match to her teeth. This led to guilty verdicts on all 8 charges, including intentional murder, felony kidnapping, 4 counts of aggravated sexual assault, and 2 counts of felony murder. The jury had gone back and forth on either life in prison or the death penalty. Either way, he would never have a chance to harm another child again. Ultimately, the jury decided to proceed with a death penalty. However, years later, in 2007, the state of New Jersey abolished the death penalty, so he is set to spend the rest of his life behind bars.
While this is a very tragic case, you could say that there was at least some positive that came out of this. So with the murder came Megan's Law. This was a law signed by President Clinton in 1996. This is a law that makes it mandatory that all sexual predators must register, and it must be recognized and announced to all neighbors in the area that they are moving in. This law is recognized by all 50 states, and while it doesn't bring child abuse to an end, it does help families like the Kankas, who, as mentioned, if they would have just known, then there would have been some more supervision. So it just kind of gives parents like yourself a better idea of who it really is living next door to you.
Yeah, and I definitely want to throw in something, too, that this was, like we talked about earlier with how far do you go for justice, this was something that her family very pushed for.
Yeah.
Was this Megan's Law. So I don't know if we said that before, but this was something that her family advocated for and was able to put in place. So as almost probably their closure, or their kind of a tiny bit of peace in such a tragic situation.
I have to imagine there's unfortunately probably some guilt, rightfully or wrongfully, and this was a good way for them to just protect future families and future children.
Megan's Law went international in 2016 as a bill was signed by President Obama. The International Megan's Law to prevent exploitation through advance notification of traveling sex offenders. This requires sex offenders to report international travel prior to deporting. Registration is now reported in all passports of sex offenders.
Dante.
Megan's Law went international in 2016 as a bill was signed by President Obama. The International Megan's Law to prevent exploitation through advance notification of traveling sex offenders. This requires sex offenders to report international travel prior to deporting. Registration is now reported in all passports of sex offenders. Off air, you had mentioned that it should also include anything about driver's license.
My bad. I meant for that
to
be.
Hold on. Sorry.
I could just pick it up right there and just read that part.
Okay.
Let's see. Okay. Off air, you mentioned that it should be included in driver's license. Now, I'm not entirely sure if that is the case. I didn't see anything about driver's license. I mean, I imagine it's possible. I have to agree with you that it should be. But with this law going international, there is now a database tracked by state community notification, and any 2-time offenders now face life in prison if convicted. So you got your passports. Anytime they travel international, they have to absolutely notify that they are going elsewhere. And I thought this was interesting. There was like I would have to imagine that this is a very small group that this is coming from, but there was a lot of, well, not a lot, but there was outcry that Megan's Law / the international Megan's Law was deemed unfair to predators because they are saying that you have to pay twice for the same crime. So you have to do your time in jail, and then you get out, and now you're paying for your crime out of jail. First off, I think if you're defending someone like this, that speaks volumes for who you are. But yeah, there was like lawyers that were like trying to get this overturned, and
I could see it being a debate because as soon as I asked about the driver's license thing, I was my initial thought was also like probably not, because think about like having to show your ID at a bar or at a gas station.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably just get your ass whooped if you show up to the wrong person. If you get pulled over by a cop and they see that, like,
or could you imagine just knowing that like your child or your family member had just gotten sexually assaulted by somebody, and then here's this guy right in front of you handing you an ID? I don't know. I could see, but also, I mean, me personally, I don't care. I feel like if you don't want to be known as a crappy person, shitty person, then don't be a shit person.
Yeah.
Like, just, that's a result of your actions. And I don't know, I guess, what the answer would be. I guess I understand what you're saying as far as they paid their time, but to me, it just seems so unfair that people can pay their time, but her family, her parents, I mean, she will never, obviously, in all the life that her parents had planned for her, walking her down the aisle, her going to school, like all those milestones are stole from them for their entire life.
Yeah.
So it just seems like there's no sentence on the victim side.
Yeah. To me, it kind of feels like just getting out of jail or prison at all is like a reward, because I don't feel like these people should be out and about personally. So if the fact that you have to have it registered on your passport or your neighbors have to know, I feel like, hey, that just is what it is. But I do have to ask, as a parent yourself, I think it's fair to say you live in a quiet, safe neighborhood. I mean, the only time it's not quiet is when you're having a get together. So I think that's
when you bring Akron to the house.
Yeah, you have a solid neighborhood. I'm wondering, like, have you ever personally either A, received a notification of an offender in your area, or B, how you ever personally checked the area?
I did check the area prior to putting an offer on the house.
Okay.
That's just something like as a realtor, I started doing whenever that
idea
took place, which was actually like right before I bought my house in 2017.
Okay.
So my first house, I didn't do any of that, which I bought in 2012. So we didn't have that. So this house in New Franklin, yes, I did do that. I have not received a notice. Also, we do live not too far from the elementary school. We live, so I don't know what the distance is.
Yeah.
But we don't live far at all. I mean, it's a 4-minute drive.
Okay. I was going to say, like, personally,
less than 2 miles.
I've never got anything where we're at. But again, we're pretty close to 2 different schools, elementary school, high school. And I don't know the exact, I think it's one of those things where it like varies state by state. Like
in Ohio, it's only 1,000 feet.
Okay, that's pretty crazy.
School premises.
That's not very far.
Childcare, yeah.
That's crazy. Okay. So. I thought it was a little bit farther than that. But, I mean, yeah, I've never received anything. But I will say that, like, in the past, I've looked up, like, locations. And it's, like, extremely alarming how many, like, little red circles pop up. Because I don't know. I don't know if it's ignorance. I guess I just feel like you think of it as like a rare a more rare crime. Like, it's not something that happens all the time, but then, like, you look it up, and it's just, like, sickening how many sexual offenders are in your area potentially. Now, I'm assuming you looked it up because the answer is yes. If you were looking for a house and there was someone in the area, would that influence your decision to move in prior to?
Yeah.
Okay, so
especially now.
Now, I'm saying, what if you
found your dream home?
What if you already are moved in?
Oh.
And then, like, you get the notice, like, hey, we just wanted to let you know, next door, Joe Schmo.
Yeah.
Now, does that influence does that make you want to move? Now that you've already had roots established, you've done so much. Are you willing to stick it out and just...
It honestly, it is tough. So, that's really hard to say, honestly, because I know, like, if you're constantly running from, like, you're always going to have that.
Yeah, and I don't want to give...
Then I could find a new house.
I don't want to leave. I don't want to give this person power over me.
But it also...
But I also don't want to be around a sicko.
Yeah, and it puts you more on guard, for sure. Like, never would I ever be napping. I mean, not that I am now, but, even, like I said, me doing that quick, like, vacuum of the living room while I'm looking out the window seeing her, that still probably won't even happen.
Oh, yeah, that's never happening.
Yeah.
If you get a notice like that, that's like, okay.
No. And I think it would really depend on their, like, tier level. They're, like, the tier 1, tier 2 level sex offenders. It would really just depend. It would depend on that as well. But it's definitely an uneasy feeling, so I think it would be difficult to say, but
yeah. So at the end of the day, anytime you hear about a child, it hits a little different. We've talked about this with, like, the in Connecticut, the school shooting, the kindergartners and stuff. Like, there's not a value on age, but, like, man, that sucks because you don't get a chance to live your life, and there's just so much more innocence as you're a kid. So I hated this one, but I thought that there was too much that came out of the Megan's Law to not talk about this one. Closing points to make regarding this case. I mean, for me, it's pretty easy, I guess. It's just be aware of your neighborhood. I feel maybe not necessarily when we were kids, but I feel like you hear stories about when our parents were kids. Yeah. It's like neighbors were on a first name basis with each other. And I guess we just really don't have that anymore. But
I will say that is something I always recommend to my clients, though, is to just kind of introduce yourself to the neighbors.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
Having an extra set of eyes.
Nothing bad can come out of being familiar with your neighbors.
No, not at all.
So be aware of your neighborhood. I think you made a great point. If you're in the market, it doesn't hurt to check beforehand. And for me, I not having one myself, but I would just say keep an eye on your kids. And if you're someone like me who's an uncle, keep an eye on your nieces and nephews. Just it takes a village.
I was gonna say it takes a village. That's exactly what I was gonna say. I know I've been places where, like, I've seen kids that I have no idea who their parents are, and I'm, like, looking around, but also, like I do a quick look around, but then, like, I'm also watching their children, I feel like. Yeah. Because you never know what can happen. I mean, like, everybody has to look out for each other. I feel like I'm going to make sure that kid's not, in distress. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, it does take a village. You never know what somebody's doing. They're turning their back for 30 seconds and anything could happen. And if it was my kid, I would hope that the same thing would be happening. But
yeah, could be 30 yards away and you don't even know it.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for this law, though. You would know it if they do everything properly. Yeah. So yeah, that's Megan's Law.
But at some point, sorry.
No, you're good.
You, but at some point, he didn't act on those assaults towards children, right? But he still probably was thinking that in his brain. Yeah. Do you see what I mean? So you could be living next to one right now, and just because they're not registered doesn't mean that they're not a sex offender.
Right. Yeah.
Or attracted to children.
Yeah.
So
it only goes so far.
Yeah, as I said, it's hard to say, running from that, because you could move in. Next time you move, it might be one on each side.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah. All right. So, sorry. Last week was a solo episode. This week, Sarah comes back. It's a little bit more of a downer episode, but I think you're going to get that with Murder Podcast. It's going to, not a lot of upbeat cases, but, yeah. That's the Kanka family and Megan, Megan's Law, and that, the person responsible, Jesse, he'll be doing life in prison. And I think it's fair to say, I hope that, I don't know if, I'm not going to pretend like I am aware of prison culture, but I hope he's getting some good old-fashioned prison justice every day. I think that's the best thing that could happen to him. So, we covered the state of New Jersey. We looked at their state flag that I was not a big fan of. We talked about some things to do, some places to see. Atlantic City, the boardwalk, a safari at Six Flags. All in all, I'm going to throw it back to you. And I want to see where you would personally rank New Jersey on desired states to visit.
I'm going to go, I don't remember what we have already down, but I would probably say, like, between, like, 11 and 15.
11 and
Somewhere
15.
around there, yeah.
Okay.
Probably
So,
closer to 11.
Yeah, I don't have the list
Just
pulled
'cause I
up,
haven't. That's okay.
but I'll
As close
find
to 11 as we
I'll
can
find
probably
the
get.
highest state that's available in that
Okay.
area, and we'll
Yeah,
throw them in there.
That sounds good.
Yeah. So, haven't been there myself, but I would like to check it off someday and see the old Garden State. So, as we begin our departure from the state of New Jersey, in conclusion of episode 27 of 50 States, 50 Murders, we want to continue to thank you, the listener, for tuning in. Each and every week, we will continue covering a new state, as well as a murder case that happened to take place there.
If you've not already, please be sure to follow and subscribe. We are on Spotify, TikTok, and YouTube. Be sure to tune in next week for episode 28.